Is that the newest book online?
No, it's just a sample.
Oh.
It's got 30 pages.
So you can cheat and get ahead a little bit. But then you're even suspense for, I guess not that long. All right. Make sure your Bibles are open to 1 Samuel chapter 28. And you should have your sheet out of Shobi there for lesson 9. Preparation for battle. So the last battle of Saul is not today. That will be our next lesson. But we'll see how they prepare for battle. Some things that were going on behind the scenes. Okay? All right, so we saw some things that David was doing. He fled to King Achish and the Philistines. And when we entangle our lives with the world and with the wicked like that, usually problems come up. We find our behavior is no longer a real godly behavior. We find ourselves falling more easily into sin. We find ourselves maybe lying and doing all this. We'll see that today, how David was entangled. What he needed to do was get out of the land of the Philistines and get back to God, get back to his church. Okay? So 1 Samuel chapter 28, please follow along here at verse 1. There you go. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever. All right, well, that creates a trouble. Achish commands David, You're living in my land? Today, tomorrow, or whenever it was, we are going to go fight the Israelite people. You, David, and your men are on my side, and you're coming with me. Because obviously Achish knows he's lost many a battle at the hand of David. Of course, having David on his side would help him win many more battles. What's the problem for David there? Well, David here, it appears as though he's stunned. If he obeys Achish, he's got to go kill his own brethren. He can't do that. But yet, if he stays here and tells Achish, No, I won't, well, Achish will kill him. What is he going to do? He's caught. You see, when we entangle our lives, like we said, with the wicked, we get caught. We can't do one thing without a bad thing happening, and we can't do another thing without a bad thing happening. And so we sometimes it's easier to do nothing and just go with the flow. Well, David gives an answer here that kind of has a double meaning. Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. In other words, you know how good of a fighter I am. What do you mean you need me to come and fight and question me? Of course I can do great fighting. So he doesn't really say, Oh, yes, Lord Achish, I will definitely go kill the Israelites. He's giving a double meaning because he knows he can't fight the Israelites, but he can't say no here to Achish. So he kind of gives an answer that will satisfy Achish, but yet will leave him a back door to slip out, to get away and not have to fight against his Israelite brothers. Okay? So, Achish says, Well, therefore I'll make you the keeper of mine head forever. In other words, what David will do is he will have the position like Abner. Abner is the bodyguard of King Saul. He's with Saul all the time. That's great benefits for Abner, you can imagine, and know that Abner's family was well taken care of. You can know that Abner probably got many luxury. He probably got to eat the king's food and enjoy the king's wine and enjoy the king's parties. Whereas other men who were generals in the army, they might not get to do those things. So Achish is saying to David here at the end of verse 2, that's who you're going to be. You'll be my right-hand man. You'll get plenty of opportunities here because of your faithfulness. David's not falling for that. Now, verse 3. Let's take a look here in the next few verses. Now Samuel is dead. So we jump back. I do a flashback or jump back into there. And all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw that the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Alright, so we leave David and Achish, and we kind of jump back into the land of Israel, where Saul is. Samuel dies. Okay? Beautiful again, the beautiful little boy, and he's son of Hannah brought to Eli. He passes away. Okay? Now Saul had been commanded to put out those, or Saul had commanded when he was in the land, he banned the use of wizards and sorcerers and these fortune tellers all throughout the land. Okay? He had done that. And we read that here. But the Philistines are creating trouble. Saul is calling on the name of the Lord. Okay? And he's not getting an answer. He's frustrated because the Lord is not answering him. He's afraid. He doesn't know what to do. So he's calling on the Lord, but he's not doing it in the good, godly, proper way of probably going to the priest. Well, where was the high priest? Abiathar. He's over with David. Can't go to him. He's not doing things, offering sacrifices, because in his heart he really doesn't care. He just wants to command God and tell him what to do. Why don't you come with me? Okay? And Saul is behaving here in that type of manner. It's though he wants to push God around. God, you get over here and help me now. That's not how the Lord works. You see, Saul can't ignore God and not have anything to do with him in his life and not obey him. And then all of a sudden when he comes in need now, he's going to call on God to ask him. It's the same for us in our lives. Okay? I can't say, well, yeah, I don't need that devotion stuff. I don't need to have personal devotions, and I can just, I'll go to church and I'll be there physically, but my mind is somewhere else. And prayer before we eat. I've got some food here, and Mom and Dad, I could just skip my prayers. It's not a big deal. If we push God out of our lives, then who are we to think that the next day when we're having all kinds of trouble that we can all of a sudden expect God to come to us now and help us in our time of need when we've been ignoring Him for weeks, days, months. Okay? So Saul wants a victory, of course, here, but he doesn't want to do it the Lord's way. Alright, continuing on here in verse 7. Then Saul said unto his servant, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said unto him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him. They came to the woman by night, and he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, who I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Who shall I bring up to thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice, and the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground, and bowed himself. This is a pretty tricky section here to understand. Saul, he's unable to call upon the Lord in the way that he desires and wants and get the answers that he thinks he deserves. So instead he speaks to his men. It's as though he's whining and complaining, I can't speak to God. Any of you know of anyone that I can go to in the land that can call up a spirit for me? Of course, Saul has outlawed it. But they know of some people around there, maybe that are still practicing illegally, or maybe they were former sorcerers, but witches, and now have not done it because Saul outlawed it. But anyways, they know that based on where they're at, there's a woman in Endor, and she is able to call up spirits. And so Saul, he knows he can't go to the door and knock, knock, knock. Hey, let me in. I'm here to, I want you to call up the spirit for me. They're going to say, well, no, you can't do that. We'll lose our life. So what does Saul do? He dresses up, puts some type of wig on his head, puts some type of clothing that doesn't look like kingly robes and doesn't identify himself as a king, and he goes to her. He knocks on her door. Okay, asks her, will you please bring an evil spirit up to me, or bring a spirit up to me? I'd like to talk to the dead. And this woman says, now you know I can't do that. The king has outlawed this. If I do it, you're putting my life at risk. I could lose my life if I would do this for you. Of course I can't do this for you. What do you mean? What are you thinking? Saul assures her, don't worry. Your life will be spared. Nothing bad will happen to you. Being the king, he can guarantee it, but he hasn't revealed that he's the king to her. So finally, she says yes. She begins her whatever magic, hocus pocus, stuff she starts doing, heating up a cauldron, a crystal ball. We don't get all those facts. It's not important. But whatever she does, she begins to do it. And then she turns to Saul and says to him, who do you want me to call up? Whose spirit do you want to speak to? Now, whether God has given this woman power all throughout her life to be able to do this, we don't know. If someone can come up to you nowadays and tell you, I can help you talk to the dead and do all these things, you would say, phooey, I know you can't really do that. Now, maybe he's a magician and he knows all kinds of tricks and he knows some ways to impress you, but realistically you know they can't do it. They're doing it by some trickeration, some magic. It's not really happening. Somehow, some way, there is information being given. Okay? But back in the Bible times, the Lord did very many miraculous things. Okay? And He did things that we don't see or expect anymore. So whether this woman was just living her whole life as a lie, as a sorcerer, and telling people fake information and then getting money from them, or whether she was really able to do that throughout her life, we don't know. But here she's really able to do it. And it's only by the power of God that she's able to do this. She doesn't have any actual power to bring up a spirit. But the Lord is working here so that one last time Samuel can give advice or information to Saul. Okay? And so when Saul tells the woman, to the witch of Endor, he says to her, I want you to bring up Samuel. She then knows instantaneously, right then and there, who this is. This is Saul. Only Saul would come to me and ask for Samuel to be brought up. She knows who it is. And now she's afraid. She's worried. And Saul has to reassure her, do not worry. You won't be losing your life. Okay? Even though what you're doing is illegal and it was outlawed. She is shocked because she is able to see Samuel coming up. The Lord does some miraculous thing. Whether it's just a figment in her own head, whether realistically Samuel was there in a spirit, whether it was all, again, we don't know. But we do know the Lord did make this happen so that advice could be given from Samuel to Saul, or information could be given. Okay? And who do you see? And she says, Samuel. Saul is now happy because he has before him Samuel. Maybe he even thinks, ooh, I've got all kinds of power. I'm able to do this now. Okay? So, what type of actual appearance it was? Was it a ghostly figure like we think of? Was it a physical figure like Jesus? When He arose from the dead, He looked normal to the people. Okay? Physically, He looked normal, even though it was a special spiritual heavenly body. Alright, verse 15 though continues on between Saul and this witch of Endor. And Samuel said to Saul, why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me. For the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even to David. Because thou obeyedest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell straightway all along the earth, and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. Amazing. When whatever it was that came up, that Saul could now see Samuel, Samuel tells him, "Why do you bother me?" Samuel was in heaven with the Lord. And now he's called here by the Lord to appear before Saul, and he says, "Why do you bother me? Why are you calling me back again?" And Saul right away answers him, "Well, because I wanted to talk to you, or the Lord, and I couldn't get to the Lord. There was no priest. I was asking, and I got no answers." Well, Samuel rebukes here. Samuel's not here to be Saul's friend. Samuel is here to rebuke him. Okay? And he rebukes him. "How can you ask the Lord? God took the kingdom away from you. It's not your kingdom anymore. He gave it to your servant David. Now when you finally come to the Lord, you never went to the Lord before. Now when you finally come to Him, you expect Him to answer you? The reason for your trouble, Saul, the reason you're being ripped out of your kingdom is because, remember, you did not kill Amalek as you should. You didn't wait for me to come, and you offered sacrifices on that altar, Samuel. You did all kinds of things wrong, and the Lord is going to take it away. And in fact, on top of all of that, on top of you going into battle tomorrow, you and your sons are going to die. Now he says, you'll be with me. That doesn't mean Saul and the sons will be in heaven with him, but they will be taken from this earth. That's what that means there. That's the news that Saul gets. Well, you can imagine, if you walk into the doctor's office today, and the doctor tells you, tomorrow you will die. You've got a disease so terrible, there's nothing we can do for it, and it will kill you within the next 7, 8, 10 hours. What a shock that would be to you. What a shock it would be to your parents. Call Grandma, quickly. Call Grandpa, tell them what's going on. Do they have time to get here to say goodbye? Mourning and weeping. And that's what happens here to Saul. He faints. He had not eaten all day, and he collapses. Well, where does this leave us? Well, verse 21 there. Okay. How does the witch react? And the woman came unto Saul, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, Behold, thine handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in my hand, and have hearkened unto the words which thou spakest unto me. Okay. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest away. So she wants to care for him. First of all, she's probably afraid of him still, that something bad can happen to her, so she's trying to get on his good side. So she offers him something to eat to give him some strength. Okay? She can only offer physical help here. What Saul really needs is spiritual help. But again, when we entangle our lives with the lives of the wicked in the world around us, they aren't going to give us any good spiritual help. They're going to give us physical help or bad advice. We have to go to the Lord, go to a minister, go to your elders, speak to them. They will give you good spiritual advice. Okay? But Saul didn't want to do those things, and so he gets some physical food. His servants persuade him to take a little food so that he's refreshed physically. It's probably the middle of the night. It's the dark because he doesn't want to be seen, so he arrived in the dark and now leaves in the dark. And he leaves to go back to the camp. Okay? Knowing that when he walks out of this house, out to that camp, the next day he will die. Chapter 29 here, we get a little bit. Now the Philistine army gathered together all their armies to Aphek, and the Israelites pitched by a fountain which is at Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds and by thousands, but David and his men passed on the rear reward with Achish. So we've done a flashback again, or a jump. We've jumped from Saul. Now we're back with David and King Achish. Then said the princes of the Philistines, What do these Hebrews here? And Achish said unto the princes of the Philistines, This is not David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which hath been me these days, or these years, and I have found no fault in him, since he fell unto me this day. And the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him, and the princes of the Philistines said unto him, Make this fellow return, that he may go again to his place which thou hast appointed him. Let him not go down with us to battle, lest in battle he be an adversary to us. For wherewith should he reconcile himself unto his master? So here's the problem. As the parade of the army passes in front of the princes, before they go out into battle, that was a common thing to do. Let's parade all of the men and the chariots and the archers and the horses and let them go past the rulers, the princes, and all the other people, and they would shout up and they would cheer and they would weep and they would probably lavish gifts upon these soldiers going out to battle. Here's food, here's water, here's wine, take it with you. May the battle go well with you. And at the end of the line comes the king. And there with the king is David and his band of men. And as they pass in front of the princes become upset. What do you mean this man is going to battle with our Philistines? This is David. This is David who's killed hundreds, thousands of us. And you're going to go to battle with him? And King Achish says, well, haven't you seen? He's been with me for this long time now, a year or so. And he hasn't done anything bad to us here. What do you mean? He's on our side now. And the princes say, Now you're going to battle against his brethren. There's a good chance that in battle he'll turn on you and kill you and the other leaders of the army. And then we're in trouble. There's no way that this man is going to battle with us. But you see, the Lord has prepared a way for David to escape. Now he no longer has to fight his Israelitish brethren. And now no longer is he the one that's telling the king no. Now it's the princes are telling the king no. And now David can get out of there. And he does. Okay? Achish had to give in. He dismissed David, sent him away. Get out of here before these princes destroy you. And so David and his men do that. Now David, of course, here pretends innocence. Whoa, why can't I be on your side? What do you mean I have to leave? Haven't I been doing all kinds of fighting for you, O king of Achish? That's a lie. He hasn't been fighting one iota for Achish. Achish thinks he's been going into Judah and destroying the Israelites there. But he's lying. He's been going out into the other lands around there, like the Amalekites and the Edomites, and he's been attacking them and taking the treasures and the spoils back and giving them to King Achish. And so he tells another lie here. Haven't I been on your side helping you do all these things? He's trying to fake his disgust with King Achish. So, all right, I'll leave. David has a problem, though. When David and his men went to the temple that one time and they wanted the food that was in there, the bread, the priest had a question for them. Are the men clean? Before they can eat this bread, it's holy bread, they must be clean. David could answer affirmatively, yes, they are clean. Now, before David goes into battle, is he clean? No. He has just in a few past minutes lied over and over and over to King Achish. David is not right. He is not prepared to go into battle. Okay? And so we'll see how that in our next lesson gets him in trouble. So David has lied here. Now I asked you to look up Isaiah 48, verse 22. If you go there, okay, Isaiah 48, verse 22. There is no peace, saith the Lord, unto the wicked. How does that apply to Saul here? Saul is wicked. He's trying to find peace. He's not going to sleep that night. The night before he's been told he's going to die out in the battlefield. There's no peace for him. And that's why you often hear on the Sabbath day, during the long prayer, the minister will often say, Lord, for those who should be here and could be here today and yet have kept themselves from the house of the Lord. In other words, I don't feel like going to church today. Or, I'm going to skip church to go to some family event somewhere. Or, I'm going to skip church to go to the Brewers game. The Lord says, or with him, the minister says, Lord, give them no peace. Make their lives miserable. Make them feel guilt in their conscience and in their hearts so that they will turn from their wickedness and come again to the house of the Lord. And that's what Saul has here too. Saul has no peace. Okay? When you get a little bit older, maybe you have a hard decision to make. Okay? Lord, I'm being offered a job and I could move to Iowa to go to that job, or I could move by our church in Minnesota, and I don't know where I should go. And so you pray and you pray and you pray, and you feel that the Lord has led you in a certain direction, so you say, this is what I'm going to do. And in your gut, you're peaceful. You're at peace with the decision. You feel a relief come on you. And it continues day after day. Good. That's the way that the Lord has answered you, that He's given you peace. That's the right way to go. But maybe you chose the other way. You felt the Lord was leading you in one direction, and then when you decided, this is what I'm going to do, your stomach's in turmoil. Not from nervousness, because something new might be nervous, but in your heart you feel, did I make the right decision? I think I've made the wrong decision. And for days and days you can't sleep, and you're tossing and turning, it doesn't feel right. You might say to yourself, that's the Lord speaking to me. He's giving me no peace. Maybe I ought to do this. And you change your mind and say, now I'll go here. And then you find you have peace. Remember? Might not. Might have been too young. Reverend Kuiper, when he was our pastor here, he had the call to Edgerton. And he said, I had written up the letter. I had told him, no, I'm not going to go to Edgerton. I feel I am called here. And he had prepared the letter, probably sealed it and gotten it ready to send off, but he let it sit there on his desk for a few days. And he had no peace. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He didn't feel all right. He knew after a few days, the Lord is speaking to me here. He's giving me no peace because I've said no to Edgerton. It must be that the Lord has a place for me in Edgerton and wants me to go there. And so he takes that letter, tears it up, throws it away, and writes a new letter. I accept your call. And now he has to write another letter. Dear Randolph congregation, I have decided the Lord has called me to Edgerton. And now he's got those two letters sitting on his desk, and he lets them sit there for a few days. Now he has peace. Peace in his heart. Peace in his conscience. And he knows that this is the Lord's will for him. And he can go on now with his life. The Lord works that way, to give us no peace. He's using that as a way to direct us and to guide us. And he was doing that to Saul here. Saul had no peace. And yet Saul still refused to turn to the Lord. He would not properly go to the Lord and say, Lord, I will submit myself to whatever you want. I'll submit myself to losing the kingdom. I'll submit myself even to death. And I can be at peace with that, Lord, because I know that this is what you want. This is your decree. But I'm sorry, Lord, for my sins. I'm sorry that I did not go fight the people of Amalek. And I ask for forgiveness. Please forgive me, Lord. That's what Saul should have done. And then he would have had peace. But he didn't. And so that's something that we can take from this too. Okay? Peace in our lives is accomplished when our hearts and our minds are right with the Lord. When we do that which is right and behave in a good, godly manner, we find ourselves in line with the Lord that way.